This is Judge Joe Brown, and you're watching We All Be News TV. News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Good evening, boys and girls, scholars and laymen, and welcome to another wonderful infotainment, edutainment edition of The Art of Mistakes. I'm your host for this empowerment segment, as always, Brother Ron, also known as R2C2H2, The Artivist. And I want to do a quick, this is Black History Month, our story, his story, my story is a mystery, but this is Black History Month, and we're doing a review on the movie James Baldwin's I Am Not Your Negro. I am reviewing the movie James Baldwin, I Am Not Your Negro. There's much ado about this movie, a lot of buzz in the mainstream or fake news media about James Baldwin's I Am Not Your Negro, a documentary based on the writings and the interviews of James Baldwin. James Baldwin is a true, considered a true intellectual giant in American history, literary genius, social justice activist, all those things, and also a supposedly openly gay black man. So they did a movie recently based on his interviews he did back in the 60s on different talk shows. Like the movie opened up with him getting interviewed by Dick Cavett on the Dick Cavett show. I believe that's how you pronounce the white man's name. And he was getting interviewed about his thoughts about, what was going on in America at the time. America at the time. The movie is interesting to me. I was somewhat disappointed. Now, the movie works for people who might not be aware of James Baldwin and his legacy and his contributions. But for me, it did not work for me. It was too scattered brain, so to speak. I know it was directed by this very well-respected director, Raoul Peck, but it was too scattered brain for me. It was made for folks, it feel like with a ADHD. Like it brought up topics that would not successfully resolve within the narrative. Like it made a point of reference that James Baldwin was close to the three M's, Malcolm, Martin, and Medgar. That's Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, and Martin Luther King Jr. These were close associates of James Baldwin, but really it really skipped on the surface on those relationships. It did not really dive deeper into what those relationships meant to James Baldwin, how they, the genesis of these relationships. It did not touch upon those things. It just, threw it out there. No, it is the YouTube generation. As a matter of fact, a lot of the clips in the movie can be found on YouTube, or do a quick Google search. You can find a lot of the videos that the movie used, the clips that the movie used for their movie, come out, videos that are readily available on Google search. For example, you should check out, take a look. It's all online. You should check out James Baldwin's Nigger. That's James Baldwin's Nigger. That's like a town hall program, a documentary that was done, I believe, over in England back in the 1960s. It features James Baldwin as well as Dick Gregory as a young man. Dick Gregory as a young man back in the 60s, talking to a predominantly black audience in England, I believe London. And really, it's a powerful piece. It's a little bit under 40 minutes long, but it is definitely worth watching and listening to, because you got James Baldwin and you got Dick Gregory in the context of their times speaking to young black people over in Europe about what's going on to black folks over in America. It's a very powerful piece, and it's readily available online. And also, it was another piece that was referenced in the documentary, which is about almost 90 minutes long, I believe. They also referenced the roundtable discussion that took place after the March on Washington. After the 1963 March on Washington, you have kind of like an all-star panel of Hollywood icons. You have people like Marlon Brando, Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, James Baldwin, and yes, even Charleston Heston. He was very much involved in the civil rights movement. Yes, Mr. NRA, that Charleston Heston, yes. He was actually a liberal back then, and he was very much involved in the civil rights movement. And they actually had a very fascinating discussion, about 30-minute discussion about what happened that day at the March on Washington, and about civil rights and about a lot of things going on in America. And that's online as well as the roundtables feature, like I said, all these icons of Hollywood, and also James Baldwin in his element. And on further note, it also featured as moderator this cat named J. Richard Kennedy. Y'all need to check that guy out. J. Richard Kennedy is an interesting figure of the 20th century, a very, almost like a shadowy figure. He was a member of the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, which was the forerunner, which was the godfather or the father to the CIA. He also was Harry Belafonte's business manager for several years. He also was a business partner at one point to Stanley Levinson, who was the advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was a known communist, who had ties to the Communist Party in the United States. That's Stanley Levinson, or Levinson, whatever you want to call it. But they used to be business partners. And this guy, J. Richard Kennedy, was also the boyfriend and mentor to Elaine Brown, who was the only woman president of the Black Panther Party. This was her mentor and benefactor. She talked about her relationship with J. Richard Kennedy in her autobiography, A Taste of Power. So this guy was basically a government agent that was moving freely in civil rights and social justice and liberation movement circles back in the 50s and 60s. And on top of that, he also used to run Frank Sinatra's business organization, Sinatra Enterprises. So this guy was everywhere. His fingerprints are all over the place. So it's fascinating that this guy was the moderator for that, you know. But overall, like I said, I was disappointed because being who I am, I studied the civil rights movement. I know a little bit about James Baldwin. My mama, she loves James Baldwin because James Baldwin, in a way, reminds her of her father. The way he looks like a black man, like the everyday black man in America. You know what I'm saying, going through hell, and he was very articulate. My thing about James Baldwin is interesting. White liberals and white media, they love James Baldwin because he reminds me, and no disrespect to James Baldwin, but he reminds me of Good Times about Mike Evans. Like, Mike Evans was so cute. He was light-skinned, he was cute, he was small, he was a little miniature revolutionary. He said all these revolutionary things, but because of the way he looked and how he sounded, he was not threatening. Now imagine if the words that Mike Evans said on Good Times were put in James and his daddy's mouth. Damn, James! You trying to burn this mother down? So imagine that. Same thing. Imagine if Malcolm X, which he did, if he said some of the things that James Baldwin said. You see how they treated Malcolm X? And matter of fact, I'm doing this on the anniversary of Malcolm X's assassination by the powers that be. I got a couple of videos with Malcolm's relatives, supporters, and other things on the We All Be TV channel. You should check it out. But they let you know, James Baldwin was allowed to grow a little bit older than the rest. All his good friends, Malcolm, Dr. King, they both died at 39. Medgar Evers died at 37. But the movie does not really touch upon those relationships in a very meaningful and substantive way, which it could have done. And basically, like I said, a lot of the things you see in the movie you can find on YouTube. Like the roundtable discussion with the Civil Rights March of Washington thing. And like the James Baldwin Negro, which is great, actually. A great archival piece that lets you know what's going on. But, I mean, this is like an ADHD generation. It's kind of hard to keep people focused and attention when so much stuff is going on. And there's so much, information overload. A lot of stuff we don't really need. But that's, James Baldwin is interesting to me. Another thing about James Baldwin, which I find is fascinating, is that James Baldwin encouraged the white American writer known as William Styron to write the Confessions of Nat Turner. Now, there was a Confessions of Nat Turner that came out during Nat Turner's time that allegedly a lawyer wrote down the confession of Nat Turner before he was killed by the state of Virginia back in 1831. This allegedly was written by a lawyer named Thomas Gray, and it was published. It became a bestseller during that time. But in 1960s, William Styron wrote and published a book called The Confessions of Nat Turner, which made Nat Turner, which morphed Nat Turner from being a boogeyman to white supremacy to being a sexually confused homicidal maniac. You know, in William Styron's Nat Turner was portrayed as being gay or sexually confused and had a lusting for white women. Because a lot of people don't know that the only person that Nat Turner killed during the actual rebellion was a white lady that I believe he grew up with. That's the only person he actually killed with his hands, or with his machete, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so I guess William Styron took that and make it imply that, you know, he was lusting after this white lady, and then he also implied that Nat Turner was gay, and that was interesting. But James Baldwin, who was a close friend of William Styron, encouraged him to write that book. So that's something to be thinking about. Why did James Baldwin encourage this white man to write a book that said that Nat Turner was gay? You also got to think about, you know, the 60s was a time of great social unrest and upheaval. You got the Black Liberation Movement, the Civil Rights Movement, and you got an interest in Black history at this point, because you got, you know, Black studies and all this stuff being formed at universities and different educational institutions across the country at this time. So imagine going to a Black bookstore and you want to learn more about Nat Turner because some of your heroes talked about Nat Turner, and you asked for the book Confessions of Nat Turner. Which one you think they gave you? Was it the one that was written back in the 19th century that was allegedly a primary source on Nat Turner? Or was it the fictionalized alternative history one written by William Styron, which won the Pulitzer Prize, which showed Nat Turner as being an angry, sexually confused Black man? See, America loved to emasculate the Black greats. Once again, America loves to emasculate the Black greats. So that's something you should ask yourself. You know, why is it the white media that he's so in love with James Baldwin? And I'm not knocking James Baldwin. James Baldwin was brilliant. A lot of great quotes, still relevant today. They showed that what he says is still relevant today. But in reality, the sad thing about it, it should not be relevant today. This Negro angst, this race issue should have been obliterated generations ago. But anyway, it's kind of like saying that, wow, the Miseducation of Negro by Carter G. Woodson, it is so great that it's still relevant today. No, I don't think Dr. Carter G. Woodson would want his book to be relevant today. Because what he experienced and what Black folks experienced back in the 1930s should not be experienced by Black folks in 2017. That's the whole point. And another thing about James Baldwin, which is fascinating to me, is that, you know, there's a saying like Picasso, I believe Picasso said something that, or a lot of people have said this before, in order to be great, you must kill your father. In order to be great, you must kill your father. And white supremacy love to pit Black icons against each other. They love the nigger royale, the nigger battle royale, okay? They love pitting Black folks against each other, right? Divide and conquer, because the answer to white supremacy is Black unity, is Black solidarity, is Black power. Because that's all about unity and solidarity. But what they do is they pit Black folks one against the other in order to keep us all divided and conquered. For example, when Paul Robeson was doing his thing, speaking out against the man in justice for people of color throughout the world, oppressed people throughout the world, wanted to charge, along with William Patterson, the United States for menticide and genocide against Black people. They was doing this before Malcolm X was even on the scene. When Malcolm X was still Detroit Red in a prison colony in Massachusetts, you had Paul Robeson and William Patterson and people like that demanded that the UN recognize the fact that the United States was committed genocide, was committing menticide against Black people. They tried to use Jackie Robinson to neutralize Paul Robeson. You know, that's like how they try to use Joe Louis to neutralize Muhammad Ali. Even though Muhammad Ali had a lot of admiration and respect for Joe Louis, they'll try and use Joe Louis. Man, as I said, and Joe Louis was basically fucking exploited and raped by the U.S. government. Here's a guy who donated $1 million to the U.S. government, who did free boxing exhibitions for the U.S. military during World War II. He was the cat that actually helped get Jackie Robinson into officer training academy. They would not even let Jackie Robinson in until Joe Louis reached out to one of his connects in the War Department to get Jackie Robinson in to become a second lieutenant. Joe Louis loved this country, was trying to stay, mild-mannered and quiet, and the government successfully fucked over Joe Louis. And they tried to use Joe Louis to go against Muhammad Ali, who they're trying to effectively fuck over. And they made comments, but even look at music. People talk about the East Coast West Coast war. What about bebop versus hot jazz or traditional so-called jazz, where the powers that be try to pit Louis Armstrong against Dizzy Gillespie and vice versa, and they end up coming together? But why is it that you gotta, in order to like one black person, you gotta deny another black person in a system of white supremacy racism? Why can't we all just get along? Why can't we all just like what we like? But that's how it does, because it's funny with the Louis Armstrong and Dizzy Gillespie thing. Dizzy Gillespie ended up moving to Flushing, Queens, whatever, to be closer to Louis Armstrong at the end. Okay? So they know that in our unity comes our liberation. But it was interesting, like I said, y'all should look at the fact that James Baldwin encouraged this white man to write this book about Nat Turner, which portrayed him as a raving, homicidal homosexual. So, and also James Baldwin, I'm bringing up James Baldwin, which is fascinating to me. You look at the fact, Kill Your Father, right? One of the people that brought James Baldwin into the literary world, that gave his stamp of approval, was none other than the great Richard Wright. Richard Wright was the one who co-signed James Baldwin into the literary world, who made the white critics and the white publishing world pay attention to James Baldwin. And how did James Baldwin pay back Richard Wright? Basically, character assassinate him through the pen. Like they said, the pen is mightier than the sword. So basically, James Baldwin, in his literary way, ethers Richard Wright, or tries to ether Richard Wright. Try to discredit Richard Wright, a man who believed in his career early on. And, you look at Soul on Ice, Eldridge Cleaver's classic Soul on Ice. He in turn ethers James Baldwin. He attacks his father, his literary father figure. And if you read Revolutionary Suicide by Huey P. Newton, he talks about an incident that happened at a party for James Baldwin, where, this is like after Soul on Ice was published, and everybody, the white liberals was digging Soul on Ice, and Eldridge Cleaver was hailed as the new Malcolm X or Franz Fanon or whatever you want to call him. Jim Baldwin or James Baldwin or Jimmy Baldwin approached Eldridge Cleaver, quoting Huey P. Newton, I'm paraphrasing, and they embraced in a French kiss. Eldridge Cleaver and James Baldwin French kiss at a party for James Baldwin in front of everybody. And Huey Newton recorded it. You read it. It's in Take All Look. It's in our book. It's in Revolutionary Suicide, where James Baldwin and Eldridge Cleaver French kiss. It's like Baby and Lil Wayne. Okay. Well, anyway, but yeah. So once again, will I recommend I Am Not Your Negro? It wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt for people, especially young people, to see it. But I will encourage people to just go deeper searching online. Go deep sea fishing online for more truth and help you form a more critical analysis of the whole thing. But I Am Not Your Negro, James Baldwin documentary narrated by Samuel Jackson. You can wait till it come out on Amazon Prime if you want to. But it's a good conversational piece for folks who are not initiated, because a lot of us don't know our history. So it is what it is. But for me, it wasn't enough. I was disappointed. But anyway, thank you, boys and girls, scholars and laymen, for listening to me ramble, rant, and rave. If you like the word you heard from Mr. Hurd, please feel free to subscribe. Tell people about this YouTube channel, because we do things a little bit differently from everybody else. And know that the best is yet to come. We got a lot of surprises coming up in the year 2017. I want to thank the folks who support this channel, who believe in what I'm doing, who spread the word, who life has been made a little bit better. I get phone calls, email, text messages. I get calls from sisters raising 5-year-old daughters, using some of my stuff on my YouTube channel as a source for their Black History projects, telling me a lot of great things. So humbling. I'm still trying to get used to the fact that I am helping people in this way, and it really blesses me because it keeps me going. It helps me to go against all odds, to keep on going. Even your haters are friends. I can even find some constructive criticism in the hate that I receive. You know, it is what it is. But like a lot of people, like somebody said, or people be saying, nobody is forced y'all to listen to what I'm saying. If it's not for you, it ain't for you. And it is what it is. I want you to keep on moving. But for the folks that hear something of what I'm saying, that you could build on, that you can amplify, I bless you, and may your blessings be amplified many times over. May you be an effective part of solution and not the part of the problem. But feel free, like I said, to subscribe, to share the word from Mr. Hurd, to also donate to the cause, because I'm a one-man army. I'm trying to do a lot of things. It's amazing to me. Sometimes I don't think I'm doing enough, you know, and I look at people who might have organizations of 20 or 40 people, and I look at what they're doing and what I'm doing. I'm like, wow, not to toot my own horn, because I can, but it's like I'm getting more stuff done than the people that have 20 or 40 people in their organization. So I want to thank you all for helping me amplify my voice as an army of one, because I'm about community at all times. So y'all know how to get at me. You know how to email, call, and text. All this is available in this video. Thank you so much. In the words of the great Duke Ellington, we love you madly. Keep on producing and pushing.